Welcome to the new podcast, Seven Laws. My name is Michal Puren. I am a CNN presenter in the Czech Republic. Professor Miroslav Bárta is with me in the studio. Hi, Mirek.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me over here.
Let me introduce him. He's a famous Egyptologist, the only Czech member of the American Academy of Arts and Science, and the author of theories of Seven Laws. What is it?
The theory of seven laws basically describes how civilizations and societies develop over time, how they reach their epochs, how they enter their crises, and how they recover from eventual collapses, because collapse doesn't mean an end, but just a significant transformation. And my journey to this theory was quite a long one, because as you said already, I'm a typical garbage person.
Why?
my training was in archaeology and Egyptology. So basically what archaeologist does is that we collect remains of past civilizations, which is pottery and remains of monumental architecture, tombs, cemeteries, you just name it.
Mummies.
Mummies
A lot
as
of
well,
mummies.
yes, a lot of mummies. Basically pretty much destroyed, but still mummies, yes, correct. And they can be either human or animal mummies. And one of my very dear friends at the American University in Kairos, Professor Salima Ikram, is one of the foremost experts in animal mummies. But back to the seven laws. I started excavating in Egypt in 1991 in Abu Sir, which is one of the major pyramid sites from ancient Egypt, very close to Cairo. And it took me, almost 3 decades to formulate some basics of this theory. A couple of years back, the theory appeared in several publications. And these seven laws are seven laws that describe, based on my archaeological researches in Egypt, in Sudan, and in the Middle East, how civilizations develop in time, what's significant for their rise, what's significant for their fall. And later on, I started to look for parallels in other civilizations, and what emerged from this pursuit was that basically any society, any civilization I was able to have a close look at displayed the same general rules, how they developed over time. So this was the trick. It took me really a lot of years, and now we sit here and talk about the seven laws and their universal application to different civilizations, including our own one.
How did you come up with it? Because regarding the universal application, I know a lot about this theory, and I read the book, which is unfortunately now only in the Czech language. It will be, I hope, very early in English. How did you come up with it?
Well, as for the publication, there have been several articles published in English. One part of the theory was a subject for Potomac Institute seminar that we held back in 2018, I think. And as I said, years ago, it started to appear to me that there are common denominators that you can see in ancient Egypt, a civilization that lasted for more than 4 millennia, and that collapsed several times. That's why we call certain periods in time like Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, late period. So at least 4 incredible rises in complexity demonstrated, for instance, by the paramount constructions of the pyramids, New Kingdom temples in Karnak, Luxor, Valley of the Kings, and many others. And then I saw other civilizations like pre-Columbian American ones. We saw it in Europe. We had some projects in Africa, except for Egypt, in the Middle East, and basically every time I started to deal with a specific civilization, I was able to identify these seven laws about which we will talk about in some minutes to come. And you said universal. yes, to some extent I can agree. These laws are universal, but yet in every civilization, the backdrop is a bit different. So they are both universal and also very, very specific. So every time you start or you have the ambition to apply them to a specific period of time and location, you must be very careful, because on one side you have them, you can find them, but on the other side, the environment is always a bit difficult and different.
We are recording this podcast 2 days, maybe, or 1 day, 2 days after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Are we in the collapse phase, I would call it, or is it just an ordinary world?
It's not normal and it's not a collapse, it's an indication. First of all, we should probably say, and we think the same, on the same board here, that everybody should be happy, and is, I hope, happy that a former president of the United States, Donald Trump, survived this assassination, which is good for everyone, especially for him and his family, of course. If I look at it from the archaeological perspective, or the perspective of long-range data, I can see that there is a clear relationship to one of those 7 laws, and that's the law of social contract. Which says that each civilization and society necessitates a functional social contract based on cooperation between individual parts of society that is really indispensable for its stable existence. And the representatives of the so-called elite significantly influence or impact the quality and character of the social contract law. In other words, in simplified terms, if there are deep ditches in a society like the American one, or you can see it also in many European states, then you have a real problem. And it was probably a question whether such an event could happen sooner or later. But that it happened is just a consequence of a very deep ditch that nowadays runs through American society.
Yeah, so this so-called polarization could be explained like a diminishing of social contract, I would say.
Well, I think yes, that's the case. It was we saw it very clearly on the 6th of January 2 years ago, when the U.S. Congress was attacked by a crowd of unnamed people, and this is just another indication. It's indication. It's not a reason for problems in the society. It's just a consequence. It's one of the signals that shows you quite clearly that there is something wrong in the society. And the use of violence, because nowadays the modern concept of the state is that the state controls the violence. And if the state fails to control the violence, this is the consequence. And of course, you can't control it in every single step, every single minute during the day. But the fact that something happened here is indication of a deeper problem in this specific case in American society. So I think that the reactions that followed in the first hours following this assassination were the best what we could wish for. Everybody was strongly against this single event, and let's hope that this was what happened last time before we get to the 5th of November.
Yeah, so this is one of the laws, social contract. What are the rest of them?
Well, let me start with the first one, which is the law of collapse and regeneration, which says, and now I will be for 30 seconds a bit academic, I quote, all societies and civilizations are limited in time and space, and there is usually a conflict at the beginning and the end. Such a war, for instance, but it's not the only form of a possible conflict. And their collapse doesn't mean extinction, but a significant transformation where the existing society or civilization usually transforms into another. End of quote. Again, in simplified terms,
Who said that? This is your
These
quote?
are all my definitions,
perfect.
because it's
Nice.
my theory based on what we said before, on my dealing with garbage in ancient Egypt and in other civilizations. So in simplified terms, if you take ancient Roman Empire, if you take Incas, pre-Columbian civilizations in general, if you take Neolithic societies of Europe, if you take Far East societies, and so on and so forth, they all thought the same thing. What was it?
I don't know.
We will never perish. We are here forever because we represent an epoch of possible development.
I hope we are here forever.
And all of them failed. All of them failed. That's one thing. So
every civilization will perish.
As far as we know.
Yeah.
That's 100% conclusion based on the statistics that we have from our past.
That's why old man dreams about the fall of the Roman Empire. This is the joke.
Yeah, but it's a bit far-fetched, because there is one profound distinction that differentiates us from the past. We are the first, in many ways, global civilization. So we have global communication, we have excellent technologies, we have the knowledge of the past, we have the means. So if we realize how this theory can contribute to our sustainable future, we could do much better than these civilizations before us. I just have to remember Isaac Asimov novel, which is called Foundation, and it's quite similar to my
favorite
to my series. So this theory, because
it's called psychohistory, I think.
Psychohistory, exactly. And this theory could, on one side, is very good for analyzing for where we are, and on the other hand, on the other side, it can be used as a very powerful tool, to me at least, to see how we can go about our future. It's not deterministic, because there are various scenarios and different ways how to solve our upcoming challenges, but still, it's probably, at least at the moment, the best we can use. And what is also very important is the notion of the collapse, because if you say a collapse on the public, most people will think in the first second about the dinosaurs. Hey, there is this Bárta and Poor saying that we will be extinct tomorrow, which is wrong, because collapse in human societies, in most cases known to us, is about a profound drop in complexity, that the system loses energy not only to maintain the attained level of complexity, but lacks resources to address upcoming challenges that are obviously more and more difficult to deal with. So if you have such challenges, you need a lot of cheap, abundant energy. Otherwise, you can't address your future. And the basic conclusion of this law is that either the civilization or society grows or fails. There is nothing in between. There is nothing like a stable, stage.
Every fail or collapse is a new beginning.
Exactly, because it's based on the intake of energy. If you have enough resources, if you have technologies that are able to solve incoming problems, then you survive. Then you can proceed in time. If you fail to do so, if you fail to secure enough and cheap resources, if you fail to have developed technologies that have to develop as well, then you fail. And that's the sixth law, that the law of energy and technological determination, because every civilization doesn't only depend, but is determined by the price and the amount of energy it has to its disposal and the technologies. If either you have sophisticated technologies, take America in the 60s and 70s, sending people to the moon, which was a wonderful example of a technological progress, top progress, and a vision for all America.
And then
we miss it now. That's the point.
The energy is very expensive now.
The energy is very expensive
the point for
now.
me. Yeah, because you can't grow. Just when you look at the GDP growth in global, it's maybe the slowest in decades if there is no recession.
Well said.
In United States, like one point something. In Europe, it's around 0, so it's nothing. And for me, from my point of view, it's because of the energy prices. So this is the 6th law of energy determination. I think this is the name.
And the point is that being a politician, you can say, "Oh, that's temporary. It's short term."
And now they are saying it's not temporary.
And the value of this 7-law series that is based on long-term trends. You can't cheat it. It's attested from different civilizations, different societies, and it doesn't describe development in the category of several years. It's based on long-term trends in history, and you can't deny them. And I'm sorry to say it, but the statistics, 100% of cases says and supports this theory. So it's the same for this sixth law of energy and technological determination.
I'm reading a book now from your friend, I would say friend, Eric Klein, which is a famous historian. And it's about the collapse in 1177 before the Christ. So it's a collapse of Egypt civilization, which is very interesting. There are a lot of similarities between us and them. One of the laws, called Heraclitus laws, means what brings you up will take you down, finally. And this is very similar to our era. We have, the world is like, I would say, plagued by bureaucracy. It's unbelievable. Everything is so difficult. The world is connected through all the traffic lines, via ships, planes, and so on. So this is it. I feel it.
You basically said the definition of it. It's named after Heraclitus, a famous Greek philosopher living in the 5th century BC, who was very close to this law. And it's very simple. Just to give you 2 examples. One of them is the amount of information that is pouring over our heads, basically from the moment we get up to the last second before we fall asleep. So we permanently consume data. And if you wake up on the next day, you realize that 99% of what you consumed the day before has no validity anymore. So we are just running through information garbage, which is terrible because it keeps your brain so busy that then you have no space to focus on real things, on things that are really significant for you, for your family, for the society as such. And it started with Gutenberg when he innovated a printing machine, and he basically cut the distance of information across Europe to 3 weeks, which was something really amazing. And this is how our Western society started to grow exponentially, because all of a sudden everybody who could afford to get and read a book was not forced anymore.
And later a newspaper.
And to do the new invention again, like, there was an inventor in Germany, in Italy, and they were independent prior to Gutenberg. But now, if somebody invented something in Germany, 3 weeks later, you could read it, you could understand it, and start building on it. And that's also why from 1500, roughly, more or less, you see an explosion in all possible science all over Europe and then later all over the world. So to me, our modern Western society was built on free access to information. This is exactly what now seems to be one of the major challenges for us. That's one example. Another example, if you have a emerging society with a lot of cheap energy, you start to organize yourself, you design different branches in the government, etc. And they have to organize the resources, record them, redistribute them, finance, constructions and projects that have general significance and impact to the society. And a certain moment, this system gets so complicated and so expensive that it basically consumes more energy than it indirectly provides. This is what we call, for instance, in modern finance states, mandatory expenses. And that's the problem of public debt in the States. It's the public debt in Great Britain.
Sometimes it's up to 90% of each
It's
budget.
the so-called Neil Ferguson's law. If the service of the public debt, that means that just to pay for the debt is more than you invest, for instance, into your military, then sooner or later you will have significant problems in the society. And we are basically at this stage of development. And again, let me express and state quite clearly, this 7-law theory is not only something that describes how the pyramids were built, how Stonehenge came into origin, how modern America came into existence, but there are two more important aspects that I have to stress over and over again. One, you can use it to diagnose your current society, where you stand. And if you know the diagnosis, you can decide how to cure the society. And the second thing is that if you apply these 7 laws to our society, our global civilization, then you could make it really more sustainable, because this theory lets you anticipate incoming crises. And if you see something coming well in advance, you can take certain measures to limit the impact.
So
negative impact.
It isn't inevitable that it will have a negative
impact. Yes, the collapse
impact.
is inevitable, because
collapse is, but it could be in 2,000 years. When you look at the civilization or Egyptian civilization, it was like 4,005.
Yeah.
How long was it?
And very similar to us.
Yes.
Very similar. And it's not only ancient Egypt. They normally put this label, Bárta is Egyptologist, so what he's talking about basically applies only and most likely exclusively to ancient Egyptian civilization, which is completely wrong, and I refuse to be labeled like this.
So how would you call our civilization? Is it the Western civilization or is it a global civilization?
I think that in many respects we are global. Take the flow of information.
We had Egyptian civilization, we have Rome Empire, we had a lot of, let's say, Greek civilization, and now what is it? Is it global civilization?
I think in many directions we are global. It's of course we can play around with how we call our civilization. Of course, we are Western civilization, and even Czech Republic in some respects should be counted as part of the Western civilization. And at the same time, this Western civilization is the civilization that makes our way how we see the world, how we go about the world, global. Because everybody wants to live in America, everybody wants to live in Britain, because everybody likes technological inventions, everybody has a certain admiration for our current level of democracy, with all pros and cons, but still it's the best way how to organize our society based on freedom, duties, civil rights, civil duties, and so on and so forth. So in many respects, I would say that we are global, and all the inventions and all the philosophical modes or theories are something that have a general impact.
But as you said, we are the first who can see it, who can see what will come in the future.
Indeed, this is what I do say, because in contrast to predecessors to previous civilization, we have access to all comparative data coming from, South and North America, Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia. We are able to process them. We are able to put them into a more general perspective. And it would be our stupidity if we would fail to use the general conclusions from them. And as I said, the conclusions we have so far are 100% sure. In many ways, I think that the comparative study of civilizations may be one of the strategic disciplines for the 21st century, because if we want to maintain our ability to grow and solve problems, if we want to make our civilization, global, from the global perspective, sustainable, which means, resilient, able to solve incoming challenges and so forth, then with the adaptations or application of the 7 laws theory, we could be much more successful, because the future is not only going to be about discovery of new chemical inventions, not about new constructions based on the latest advances in technology and physics, but it's also about strategic understanding of how societies develop over time. I'm not deterministic here. I said from the very beginning, straight away, that each civilization is in many respects different, but yet, these 7 laws can be found in any given civilizations we are aware of.
Yeah, thank you. This is it. We will talk about 7 laws in the next episode, and we will talk about current affairs. So it's very important to see what is coming. And thank you very much.
Well, thank you for this pilot, and to all our listeners, stay with us.
Stay with us.